Today we're focused on how managers can save 10 or more hours a week and still create a very high performing team. So welcome to the webinar. Good to see you. Firstly, I'll tell you a little bit about me. I'm a sports fan. In particular, I enjoy AFL football and I'm a Collingwood supporter and member. So I was happy a couple of years ago when we won the premiership, not so happy last year. There's a picture of me with my partner and my son at the grand final from a couple of years ago. I still like to keep fit. Used to play a lot of sport. Now just do a few things like going to the gym and the odd run here and there to keep fit. And then in the middle of the page, there's an example of one of the leadership programs that I've run over many years. And there's me on the left-hand side helping people in this leadership program to improve their leadership and their impact on others. And that's become my personal passion. Because what I've really seen in my corporate life and then also working in leadership is that when you have good and effective leaders, they create a great place for people to be, whether it's in the community, whether it's at work. And on the other hand, if you don't have good leaders, if you've got really poor leaders, it's not a very pleasant place and it's not a very pleasant world. So I'm hoping to make it a better world, one leader at a time, by helping people along. So a little bit more about me and my background. I first became a manager in my late 20s, was one of the high performers in the role, so I was thrown in and didn't have much training. Was expected to get other people to be a high performer like I was. And I had to improve through trial and error. And I thought I was doing pretty well, but it turns out I wasn't doing as well as I thought. And I spent long hours trying to make sure that things were going well, right? So you had to invest a lot of time, which a lot of people find themselves in. And this is a story I hear from others many times. But eventually I got some leadership training and coaching. And what I found there from that leadership training and coaching, even though it was about 7 years down the track, so I improved so much more in the year than I did compared to the previous 7 years. Okay, so it made a huge difference rather than that slow trial and error process. And other people could see a difference in me and they were asking me about the difference. And then they started asking me about helping them and coaching them. So after nearly 20 years in corporate, I became a full-time leadership coach and leadership development facilitator. I've run leadership programs for over 1,500 people, individually coached well over 300 managers. And I've helped all of these people to work less hours, create a much bit more balanced life, get promoted and earn more, and yet still hit their targets, have a motivated and engaged team, and increase their job satisfaction, be happier at work. Now, this is a story, the first part of the story is something that I hear often about being thrown in the deep end. And based on the research and some of my own research, this is a bit of a picture about how managers tell me they're feeling right now. So check in and see what's happening for you. And I'd like to hear any comments. Take yourself off mute if you'd like to share. But are you feeling like some of these things are happening with you? So according to the Gallup research, managers are less engaged than they have been for some time, and the engagement scores are low, but managers are even less engaged than the average employee or team member. Burnout is one of the number one reasons that managers are struggling and are less engaged, just that overall workload and that overwhelm. So over 70% of managers are experiencing ongoing work stress. Okay. Now, part of the challenge here is that over 80% of managers feel that their organisation could have done more or a lot more to set them up for success in their role. Right? So managers are not feeling like they're being set up for success. Okay, is any of this relating to you? So here's another check-in, and I'm going to ask you a few questions here, and then I'm going to stop the slideshow and get you to share or type into the comments, into the chat. But how do you feel you are going? Firstly, if you look at how you're performing now, and if you look at 10 out of 10 as being the best that you can be, right? It's not perfect, but it's your best. You know, what an athletes would call my personal best. You know, if you're running in athletics, it would be the best time that you've had. You are able to achieve it. That's 10. Give yourself a rating out of 10 as to how you've been performing over the last 12 months or so. Here's another couple of things to reflect on. How are you going with the hours that you work? If 10 out of 10 is a really balanced life with the ideal working hours, right? And 1 is working way more hours than you would like, and it's having an impact on you. So how would you rate out of 10 what's happening with your working hours? And then how would you rate about having all the tools and resources necessary so that you can be at your best? You know exactly what you need to do to consistently be at your best. Right? So I'm going to stop the share just for a few moments and get some input from others. Okay, so tell me, how are you going with some of those ratings? Type into the chat or take yourself off mute. How would you rate yourselves? Who's going to be first to share?
I'm probably about 6 or 7.
Yep.
And with the hours that I work, it's really getting too much, I think. I think that's the reason why I've clicked on your invite to come to this webinar. Yeah. So it's something that I need to deal with and to improve and train better with my team.
Okay. Thank you for being so honest and sharing there, Myrna. Really appreciate that. That's fantastic. And what you'll see in a minute is that you're very similar to lots of people. We'll go back into that in just a moment. Thank you. Anyone else like to share? You can type into the chat if you'd prefer to do that. All right. Just while the others are thinking, we'll head back. Okay. Thank you. Got a 7 here. Appreciate that. Good. So we've got some similar results here. Let's see what others have described. And I've asked many hundreds of people these questions now in different situations. So what are other people telling us about how they rate themselves? Well, the first thing is that over 80% of managers rate themselves a 3 to 6, and we've got a 7, and then we had a kind of 6 to 7. So we're kind of getting close to being in that space, okay? And in a bigger group, we have some people who would rate themselves a little bit lower. But it's a little bit disappointing, and especially in the sense of, you know, I'm involved in helping leaders grow and develop, that we rate ourselves, and most managers, over 80%, sort of between 3 and 6-ish. And yet, almost all of those managers want to be 8 to 10 out of 10 every day, but they're not really sure how to get there. They get stuck by various things that are happening. One of them is the long hours, which is what we're focusing on today. So this is what it looks like. If you're in that 3 to 4 to 5 area, what the managers are telling me is their confidence is low. Okay, they used to be confident as someone who did really well as an individual performer, and now their confidence has gone down as a manager, and there's this high workload, high amount of tasks to do, and they feel like they have to put themselves in the situation where they do the complex work, and they've got the really hard work or the fixing things. So they're not getting any time to be strategic, not developing others. They're concerned about career path and also how they can maintain this. So burnout is on their mind, and they're thinking about whether I should be leaving this role in some way, shape or form. And those people that are in these sort of 5, 6, even 7 to 8, they tell me that they're on a confidence roller coaster. Again, tell me if this is you. Think about where you fit in. And that is that sometimes confidence feels good, Then if something happens, or the workload goes up and the confidence goes down, or you get some bit of feedback and the confidence goes down. You do something well, confidence goes up, and it's up and down. And you're trying to improve how you're doing things. There's an element still of trial and error, and maybe there's some courses that you're doing or some support you're getting. What happens is it feels very difficult to implement those new habits. So you fall into the old habits and get back into the old way you've been doing things very quickly. And again, strategic time, you're trying, for example, maybe to plan it in, but often you don't get to use that time to actually be strategic. And you're not effective in terms of that strategic thinking. Right? And there's still a clear element of feeling stressed, that high workload, overwhelm, and uncertainty about career progress and direction. And maybe you've also been in a situation of missing out on promotions. Whereas what we want people to be, we actually want 80% of people to be between 8 and 10 out of 10, where they're consistently high in confidence, where you're engaging and empowering others, yet you're still able to hold them accountable, where you're consistently adding strategic value, making time for being strategic, having effective strategic thinking, being proactive in how you're going about your leadership and management rather than feeling like you're always reacting to all the things that are going on. So, would you like to be in that space? 8, 9, 10 out of 10, and in the green as we've just described. That's what most managers tell me they want to do when they want to be. So let's have a look at how you can get to this place. All right. And please feel free to jump in and ask any questions or type into the chat. Happy to take questions as we're going along. All right. So let's have a look at the highest level. The 3 key things we're looking at are meetings, email, and then some planning and letting you know why to-do lists don't work for almost everybody. Okay, so what we'll do now is go into each of these in a little bit more detail. And of course, we're looking at leadership effectiveness, right, and how you go about achieving through others. And it's being able to let go more. So the first one we're looking at is meetings. And what I've been able to do with everybody that I've worked with that's wanted to save some time is to save them several hours. It averages about 4 or 5 hours a week when we start putting these things in place around changing meetings. Okay. So again, let me know, a question for you. Do you have days where there's just back-to-back meetings and you don't feel like you get time to think? Whether it's for half the day, whether it's maybe for all of the day, and you have that once, twice, maybe quite a few times a week. Well, it's not ideal at all from a management and leadership effectiveness point of view. All right. So yes, thank you for sharing and confirming that meetings happen regularly back-to-back during the day. Oh, I appreciate that. So what do we do about that? So this is one of the consistent challenges that managers face. So the key thing is, firstly, really start to look at not going to all of the meetings, creating some influence and some assertiveness so you are able to stop going to some of these meetings. All right. And it's about thinking about from your own perspective, are you going to some of these meetings because you don't want to miss out? It's being able to recognize that and let go of that. Other times it could be because you're invited, you feel like you should go. So in order to save this time, you need to change some of those things and recognize it's just not effective for you as a manager to go to all of these meetings, and you need to say no to some of them. Another key thing to look at here is how the meetings run. Okay, so anytime where you're running the meeting, or it's also about increasing your influence on the meeting to get meetings so that they start and end on time. Okay, and also consider changing how long they go for. Meetings tend to get put into the calendars based on the blocks that are already there, usually the 60 minutes, an hour, sometimes 30 minutes, sometimes an hour and a half or 2 hours. And in many cases, cutting, for example, the 1 hour meeting down to 45 minutes is still as effective. In fact, it often sharpens up how you're running the meeting and makes it even more effective. And it reduces the chance that you'll just run hour on hour, meeting after meeting into one after the other, okay? And what becomes important about this is being able to influence how this happens. So most you can, some you can't. I know with senior people, sometimes you can't, but many you can have an influence on how that works. All right. And it's about thinking about how you plan and run the meeting. So some of the things to help with here is insisting on asking for what exactly is the purpose of the meeting, making sure there's an agenda, the role. So the people coming along, what role are they supposed to play? And in particular, what role are you supposed to play for someone as part of the meeting? And making sure that the meeting has action items. Because if these things, some or all of these things are missing, then what you have is a discussion, might be a very good discussion, but then there's nothing clear about, one, the time that you're spending in the meeting and how long it goes for, so it often runs over time. And then it seems that we've all also got to then create another meeting or other follow-ups just to get clear on what exactly we do coming out of that meeting. And people tell me a lot that we have a meeting to sort of recap what happened in the last meeting and try and get some action items. So when you're running your meetings more efficiently with a purpose, agenda, role and action items, you will reduce the amount of meetings that you need to go to, and you'll be much more effective. You can use this for point one, right? If someone's running a meeting that they can't tell you the purpose, they don't have an agenda, they can't tell you why you should be there, that gives you an opening to decline that meeting. Okay. And another one to think about as we move into delegation and also growing and developing our team members is that sometimes it might be appropriate for some of your team members to go to some of these meetings rather than you having to go to all of them. So that's something for you to really start to think about. Maybe others could attend instead of you. So that's meetings, and that could save you 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a week if you put these steps in place. Is it easy? No. Is it worth it? Absolutely. Okay. Now, the next thing to look at is email. Now, have a think about how much we spend looking at email. Now, what I'm told literally by 99% of people is that at some point during the day, they look at their email and they base what they do next on what they're reading in their email. Okay. And what does that mean? It means that our email is determining what we do. It becomes sort of a default to-do list and also becomes a reactive way of operating. So we're actually by default prioritizing by what emails are coming through to us. Now that is ineffective in any sense of the word, especially for managers and leaders. So we don't want email to be your default to-do list and prioritization tool. You need to stop that. We need to change that into a process of being proactive with your planning and looking at email as something that you process as a communication tool. Okay. In the old days, before we had so much email coming in, if anyone remembers, it's a long time ago, we used to get physical mail as well. And when the mail came in and was given to us, all right, we would process it in a certain way, but we wouldn't necessarily look at it straight away. When we did look at it, we would go through each item very quickly within a minute or two and determine what we would do with these items. Do we throw it out? Do we put it into something that's associated with a project? If it was something that we could do quickly, we would process that, take that action quickly, and then we would get back onto our projects and our tasks. But these days, we don't do that. So I'm suggesting you take that old physical mail approach to email rather than be checking it all of the time and letting it become your default to-do list. Other ways to help with this is to create email rules. Some of you may have already done that. And if you have, please give me a thumbs up or share or type into the chat what kind of rules that you have set up. I'm sure that would help others. But one of the simple ones that's helped my clients a lot is that any emails where you're CC'd rather than being in the to list, the CC goes into another folder separately. And you share and communicate with people that if you're CC'd on something, it goes into a separate folder that you'll read at some time when you've got some free hours to catch up on that reading, which of course is almost never. It clears out a lot of email and it takes away the pressure of feeling like there's so much more email and reading and information that you've got to catch up on. So these are some of the things that you can do to help reduce, and that might be another 1 to 2 to 3 hours a week in email that you're saving, but also it changes your impact because you're not just letting email determine what you do, you're starting to create some space about prioritizing in a different way. And that's where we want to look at the concept of capacity, okay, and determining our planning. Now, to-do lists don't work. All right, I'll come back to that in just a moment. What we need to do is firstly have a high-level look at where you want your objectives to be over 2 years or 1 year, and then you also break those down into milestones, 120 days, 90 days, 60 days, 30 days, or some combination of those. And so there needs to be a clear connection between what you're trying to achieve in the bigger term, 1 to 2 years, and what you're doing today and in the next 30 days. Right? You need to clearly be able to see that connection and using that as part of your planning and prioritizing. We want to prioritize and plan weekly and not daily. Okay? There's just so much for us to do. There's not enough flexibility in just looking at a single day. A week, as Stephen Covey described in several of his books, including The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, a week is an ideal unit where there's enough structure but enough flexibility to be very effective and productive. So you want to be looking at key chunks of time in planning your week. The other key thing here around capacity is about thinking about how many hours do I want to work? As I said, most managers saying they're working too many hours. We heard that earlier. So getting a sense of what is actually realistic and ideal for you across a week is important. It's much easier to do that across a week than it is on any individual given day. Now, we say avoid to-do lists, and that's because the research shows us that very quickly to-do lists become very long, right? They get to be a whole page of us writing things down, multiple pages. It becomes a bit messy, or if we're rewriting the to-do list, many people feel like that they're rewriting the same things. And when people look at a long to-do list, it increases their sense of stress and pressure and overwhelm. Okay. And with a to-do list, yes, there's tasks for what we need to do, and it's important that we understand we've got to do these tasks. On the other hand, it's not clear how long they take or where they fit in. And that's where putting them into a weekly plan becomes much more effective and enables you to see that you're much more in control. And what it does is it allows you to look at what will fit in and what does not fit in. Because one of the key things here is being able to say no and understanding that in terms of your capacity and priorities and using some assertiveness and influence around that. Okay, so if you keep saying yes, you've got a to-do list, but you're not sure how that fits into the week, then all that ends up is that you work those extra hours. You work at night, you work early in the morning, you work on the weekend. And with this capacity and weekly planning, put some things in there that's not just work. If it's important to you to exercise, put these into your plan. If it's important to you to do some hobby, I do some dancing. Other people I know do drawing and artwork. Others spend time with their family. All right, so it might be taking kids to school, picking them up, taking them and being involved in their basketball or their dance. So it's about putting those in to help set some boundaries for you as well. And then looking at what will fit in and consciously choosing what to do as a priority, but also really choosing what not to do, because that's going to make the difference in getting you back to a balanced lifestyle and not just continuing to work those long hours because you've got things on your to-do list. You're taking things off and communicating to others about what is not going to get done or not going to get done in a certain time frame. It's really important for you to think about that. Okay. So get yourself a weekly planning process. Let me know if you'd like some more information about exactly how all of this works. Let's have a think about how you would go about doing that. And I encourage you to put that in place rather than just using a to-do list or relying on email as part of how you're prioritizing. So a weekly planning process will make a significant difference. It will reduce your hours so you can save another 2-3 hours a week, and it will also help you feel like you're more in control and more productive. Now, the other element we want to look at here is how you're going about things as an effective manager. Now, do you or managers in your organization sometimes say it's easier to do it myself? Right? And when I do it, I know it'll be done right. Does that ever come up for you at some stage? Pretty much everyone has this at some stage. Most people have it come up every week, if not every day. Okay. It means that you're sabotaging yourself from being at your very best as a leader. Right? So what managers often do when they really believe they're doing the right thing is fix the team's work, right? Fix the situation or improve their work before it gets passed on to others in the organization or clients, okay? Because they don't want the team to fail. They don't want the people in the team to not have high standard work. I can understand this. And maybe as managers, you're giving your team members answers to all their questions. You're getting questions consistently. What do we do next here? How do we fix this? What's the next step here? And you're quickly giving them all of the answers. I did this for many years at the start. I thought the quicker I give them the answer, the quicker they'll go away and address that task. But it actually all backfired on me. It didn't work anywhere near as well as I thought it did. Okay. And then you can also fall into the habit of you knowing exactly what to do. You've got your steps, your process that ends up with a high level quality outcome. So you start telling the people what to do step by step to complete those tasks. Okay. Now, this all seems like the right thing to do. We need managers to stop doing this because it's part of what's creating the stress and the pressure and the overwhelm. And it's going to get in the way of you being at your best and you creating opportunities for your career going forward, because it actually leads eventually to burnout. All right. So what do we need to do instead? Look at how we develop leadership effectiveness. So it becomes about how do you get things done through others? All right. So it's really stopping and thinking about not me doing it, but who else could be doing this or could be trained up to do this. It's about building the foundation of trust. So trust is more important than anything else when you're working with your team members. It feels like ticking off tasks should be the most important thing, but I encourage you to think about building trust is the most important thing. And that way, you'll feel more comfortable and they'll feel more comfortable about empowering and empowerment, and you can empower all of your team members and allow them to step up. Right? And so the key thing here is stop doing and fixing and telling them what to do. That's a short-term element. It's not going to help you to be at your best. It's not going to help you in your career, and it doesn't help your team members to grow and develop. When you build the trust and empower others and let them go in their way, right, then they become more proactive. They stop interrupting you as much. They stop asking as many questions. They start producing higher quality work, and that takes a lot of pressure off you, right, and gives an opportunity for develop your people to be growing and being at their best and coming up to a very high standard of performance. And then you can create an effective succession plan, which is also really critical for you if you want to progress your career. Because one of the main things that senior managers tell me is it stops newer managers or middle managers from getting promoted is that if they take them out of their current position, there's too much of a hole. There's no one behind who can be part of a succession plan to step up and take in their role. Right. So it takes some time to put this in place. And then as your team members are empowered and performing, then they start doing more of the work. It creates more space and time for you to do other things like be strategic. And you can save, again, anywhere from 2 to 5 hours a week, sometimes even more by putting this in place. Now, the other thing here that really helps you is to make sure you have access to proven leadership tools. So you're not trying to learn with trial and error all of the time, and you're not trying to ad hoc deal with every different situation that comes up. It's about having models and processes to give effective feedback, to delegate, to deal with difficult conversations, to go through improving performance, to deal with conflict, to set people up for success, right? And not just making it up every time something comes up. It's about having a proven process that other people have used and you know that it works. All right. So let's have a look at what you need to consider going forward. So just think about this. Typically what happens with people who want to be better at management and leadership is that, and most people do, and they think, right, what will I do? Well, I'll go to a course of some sort. So the options are there. You go to a leadership program. You have to pay up front. You've got a bit of a brochure, but you don't really know what you're going to get. Okay. You go along to the program 1, 3 days, 5 days even maybe, and there's some good content. There's probably some that's really relevant to you, some that's not. And then you finish the program after a couple of days, a few days, and off you go. In almost every case, it's kind of like, there's the workbook, good luck going forward. And unfortunately what happens is that most people only implement a few percent of what they learned in that leadership program. They fall back into old habits. So would it be better if there was something different, something where, for example, maybe you didn't even have to pay up front, where you could try it out and where there was more support along the way so that you can make a real difference? Because what you need to look at is you have a choice about what will it cost you if you stay in that range of 5 to 7, some maybe lower than that, out of 10 in your own performance, and you've got that sense of a bit of pressure or stress or overwhelm. Okay, will it lead to burnout? Or is it just much slower growth and slower promotion or no promotion? And how would you feel if you were in a similar position with working hours and similar sort of role in 3 years' time? Or you could get some help in a different way than just going to a course, perhaps, where it enables you to have consistently high confidence, create a high-performing and highly engaged team, and you have multiple career options. That would be much better, wouldn't it? So here's a couple of people that have been through my program. I'll let you read through this and see how Alex found the program. It's significantly improved. And this is part of going about this in a different way rather than just doing a leadership course or reading a book or watching a TED talk. And Jude was an interesting one, a very, very intelligent person, completed his MBA. And he's one of the ones that really stands out as to the subtle difference of being able to apply these leadership approaches and techniques that I've been talking about today, and what a difference it made, even though he was a super trained, super educated, super intelligent person. So have a think about what would 12 months of support and leadership coaching, how much would that help you in your leadership development, help you improve and your team improve, get you into a different situation? So here's why I've created a different possibility here, because usually people are going off to those short-term courses and they're not sure what they're going to get and they find it hard to implement things. Or there's some executive coaching that goes on. Unfortunately, most organisations say, well, that's too expensive. We're not going to spend tens of thousands of dollars on every single manager we've got. But it doesn't have to be that way. In fact, you can get a much better programs that I've set out here, if this fits where you want to go, where you can try it out for yourself and you get ongoing support. So it's about the outcome. It's not about just giving you the content. We work with you until you grow and transform into that effective and engaging leader. All right. And the key things involved are flexible online video-based training for all of the key modules and programs and models and approaches you need so that you've got the proven leadership tools. You do activity worksheets associated with that and what's going on at your work, so you get feedback from me about how you're going and how you can improve. You get one-on-one coaching sessions, 3 of those, but you also get weekly live small group coaching sessions. So this is a completely different approach, and we've been able to package this up in a way that it doesn't cost you much more than going on one of those short leadership programs. You get the support to implement and improve your leadership and your management over 12 months. And you get to try it risk-free, right? You can jump in and actually have a go at it. What other training programs enable you to do that? And I'm with you along the way, answering your questions. Anything that you ask, you get answered. And all you need to do is look at devoting a couple of hours a week and you can be at your best in as little as 90 days. And we can set you up with a complimentary coaching session to start. So we'll finish up there. Been through a lot of content again today. So happy to answer questions or for you to email me. We'll book time to have a chat. What questions do you have? Type into the chat. Take yourself off mute. What's happening in your management leadership world that you'd like help with? What questions came up about the content that we've got here? I think there's only a couple of people left. Myrna or Amanda, are you still there? Can you hear me?
Hi, yes, I can. Sorry, I was just pulled away for a brief moment.
That's okay. We've just wrapped up and we're in the question and answer session. So happy to take any questions about anything to do with management, leadership, effectiveness, any of this covered today.
Yeah, no, I think it's very good reminders of, just how we can get bogged down with various other things, and just good to just revisit, the foundations again. So thank you.
Pleasure. What was the most useful sort of reminder that you got from today?
I think it's just ensuring that we're obviously training people that come into it, so it helps us move forward as well.
Yeah, great. That's a great takeaway. Thanks for sharing, Amanda. Mona, what are your thoughts? Any questions?
I don't have any questions, but that was really a good session. It's it's giving me an insight on how to do actually time management, and it's something for me to work on, get things done through others. I have to train my team. So that's really good.
Yep.
Quick question, Michael. Will we get a copy of this session?
Yes.
Recorded? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good to revisit again. Yeah.
Yes. In the next 24 hours, I'll send out an email just seeing who wants a copy of the slides and the recording.
Yeah.
And so just say, you just reply and say, yes, I'd like a copy, and then I'll send out the copy of the slides and the recording for those that want it.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank
so
you.
you can go back through everything again. And if you do that and you've got any other questions at a later stage, please feel free to reach out anytime.
Yeah, will do. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Glad you both got some value out of it. Really appreciate you being here, and enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.